The air in the interrogation room was static, thick with the smell of stale coffee and something colder, something metallic, like fear. The air in the interrogation room was static, thick with the smell of stale coffee and something colder, something metallic, like fear. Detective Elias Thorne didn't move. He simply watched the man across the table. Arthur Vance, a man whose life had just been cut clean in two. Vance was a debt collector, unremarkable and meticulous, a man defined by spreadsheets and quiet desperation. He was sitting in a chair that suddenly looked too small for him. His hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white islands against the synthetic veneer of the table. Thorne began, his voice a low, steady current, designed to erode resistance, not blast it away.
Arthur, we need to talk about the night of the 14th. The night?
Mr. Silas. Redding went missing from his apartment in the Meridian complex. Vance swallowed, a dry, audible sound in the silence. He started with the usual script. A business goal, a disagreement over payment. Nothing more, but Thorne had seen the footage. The grainy, undeniable footage of a van parked too long, a figure moving too fast. The truth, Thorne knew, was a heavy chain that needed only one weak link to break the man carrying it. The narrative wasn't about a debt. It was about the line Arthur Vance had crossed, the chasm that opened when necessity collided with moral collapse. Vance wasn't a monster. He was a desperate man who had rationalized the unthinkable, a man whose quiet life was crushing him under the weight of his own financial failures. The debt he collected was his own crushing poverty, and Silas Redding, the wealthy, arrogant investment broker, had simply been the wrong kind of immovable object. The narration shifted, peeling back the layers of Arthur's internal landscape. The mounting eviction notices, the shame of telling his daughter they couldn't afford her tuition, the gnawing realization that his failure wasn't just his own, but a burden passed on to those he loved. That night, when Silas Redding laughed in his face, dismissing Arthur's desperation as an inconvenience, something in the collector snapped. It wasn't planned. It was a sudden, ugly eruption of bottled-up rage, fueled by years of silent servitude to the unforgiving system of capital. A quick, brutal struggle in the narrow hallway, a heavy blow. Then, the silence, the terrifying, deafening silence of a life, extinguished by a moment of utter moral abandon. The decision to move the body, to hide the evidence, was not the act of a career criminal, but the panicked, clumsy actions of a man now drowning in consequences. He took Redding's customized luxury watch not for the value, but as a visceral symbol of the life he envied and hated, a mistake that would later become the key piece of evidence. The case lay dormant for months. Redding was presumed to have fled with investor funds. Arthur Vance returned to his life, but it was hollowed out. He was a ghost, piloting a human body. He kept the watch in a hidden compartment behind a loose baseboard in his small kitchen, a ticking reminder of his irreversible sin. The documentary then introduced Agent Lena Torres of the Federal Investigation Unit, brought in much later due to the complexity of Redding's financial disappearance. Torres didn't look at the files as a missing person case. She looked at them as a series of connected, cold transactions. She saw the pattern. Every person Arthur Vance had been tasked with pursuing for aggressive, high-value debt collection, every individual who had disappeared, had been arrogant, well-off, and had dismissed Arthur with contempt. It wasn't random. It was targeted frustration. It was the pattern of a serial killer motivated by socioeconomic resentment, not bloodlust. 3 other disappearances over the previous 18 months all, written off as flight risks or accidents, suddenly clicked into focus. The tension ratcheted up when Torres realized Arthur was meticulous, except for one thing: the watch. A specific model, they tracked it to a pawn shop. Receipt found in the Redding apartment. Files a receipt dated a week after the disappearance, showing that the watch had been sold for a fraction of its worth by someone using a burner phone and a nearby bank. ATM receipt is pseudo-ID bootnut, before Arthur had almost been caught on camera near the drop box. The final confrontation was not in an interrogation room, but in Arthur's own, dilapidated apartment. Torres, alone and professional, confronted him with a laminated photograph of the watch. The scene was suffocating. The chipped paint on the walls, the dust motes dancing in the single shaft of late afternoon sun, the heavy scent of old wood and loss. Arthur looked at the photograph, his eyes clouding with recognition and profound exhaustion. He didn't deny it. He sank onto his worn-out sofa, the air escaping his lungs like a puncture. "The first time," he whispered, his voice catching. "I thought it was the end of the world, but when nothing happened, when they just labeled him a runaway, I realized it was like an escape hatch. For me, for the humiliation," he confessed, not out of moral awakening, but out of a paralyzing weariness from carrying the weight of 4 stolen lives. He described the burial sites, remote, forgotten places in the national forest, where the silence was the heaviest thing of all. He confessed to each of the 4 victims: the financier, the tech executive, the property developer, and Silas Redding. Each one had made him feel small, disposable, a piece of trash to be swept aside. His confessions were clinical, devoid of emotion, yet the act of speaking them brought the crushing moral weight crashing back down. He was not confessing to murder, but to being overwhelmed by a system that left no room for failure, and his lethal response to that pressure. Thorne arrived later, watching Torres cuff Arthur Vance. The collector's face was slack, resigned, and strangely peaceful for the first time in years. He didn't struggle. He simply looked at the bare walls of his home, now a crime scene, a monument to his failure and his violent, disastrous protest against it. The debt was finally settled, but the cost was absolute destruction. Sometimes, one wrong choice can destroy a lifetime. Learn from their story. Choose kindness. Choose life. This was just the beginning. The most mysterious and shocking crime stories are still ahead. Subscribe to Crime Flow Narratives and be among the first to uncover what comes next.